And I happened to run an interview with Steve McManaman today in which I was really fascinated by his experience because he arrived at Real Madrid a year before the Galactico era, and then it sort of unfolded while he was in the dressing room. But in the process of writing this, I realized that Steve McManaman, I knew this, that he was a phenomenal player, but that he had scored the second goal to basically seal the Champions League final for Real Madrid against Valencia before that whole era began. He scored a famous goal in the semifinal against Barcelona when there was a Clásico in the Champions League semifinal. You called the Champions League for many years. I mean, were you there for some of that? Do you remember that era right before the Galacticos, or maybe just as it was starting?
Yeah, the first European Cup final that I ever covered was in 1978. Yep, people that we had electricity and everything in 1978. It's a long time ago. That was for a radio. That was a radio commentary. But the first time I commentated for network TV on a Champions League final was 1998. But that was a Real Madrid final. So yeah, the era that followed, featured all of those players. And probably, if I was really pushed to name my all-time favorite player, it would be Zinedine Zidane, again because of that matador feel, but with edge. He was from the back streets of Marseille. Hey, he could look after himself. As we found out with his final act as a footballer, he didn't suffer fools. He wasn't going to mess around. If somebody insulted him, they were going to finish up on the ground. Real Madrid did that then, and they've sort of recreated it. They have been an extraordinary club in my lifetime. I cannot remember the early finals because I was only a young child, but I can remember my father talking about they had a very famous win in 1960 in Glasgow. They scored 7 goals in the final. That their 2 Galácticos then were Alfredo Di Stéfano and Ferenc Puskás, and they scored 4 and 3 goals in that game. And I mean, Alex Ferguson was a young Rangers player at the time. I think a youth player, and he went to that final and was very struck. It made a huge impact on the rest of his life. What he saw that night, it was like watching people who'd arrived from a different planet playing football in a completely different way. There was a Hungarian national team in the 1950s. And all of this history is fascinating because actually the game is the same. I mean, obviously the conditioning of the players, the diet and the fitness of the players, the condition of the playing surface, the ball itself, the equipment, all of these things improve over the period of time. In sort of golfing terms, it's the difference between the hickory shaft around St Andrews and the what we see now when Scotty Scheffler hits at 200 yards or something crazy. But actually, if you're interested in a sport, it is fascinating to go back and find out about Babe Ruth, find out about Magic, find out about what was special about these guys. And you can do it now, of course, with YouTube, and other platforms are available. But you can go back and relive the archives and see some of the footage of what made these people really special in their sports. And I'm fortunate in so much that I am old enough and I've been privileged enough to see a lot of these players play in the flesh, to see Zidane, to see Maradona and so on, to actually see them in the flesh. But I think if you can't do that, which you can't now, then don't put them in your feet, whatever. It's not FIFA now, but don't create them as if. Go back and watch the footage. Watch the Brazilian goal against Italy in the 1970 World Cup final. Watch it from the beginning, and tell me if you've seen a better goal in the last 20 years. A lot of things have improved. Any sport that you can measure, all the track and field events, they've gone forward. Of course, they go forward. With the improvement in coaching and technique and say conditioning and so on. But actually, the greats would have found a way today. They might have had to change Maradona might just have had to change the way he lived today, but he would have found a way. And I do think it is. I think it's a fascinating thing, and I think young people are doing it more and more. I think they want to know about the history of their sport, and particularly as some of these characters now do appear in the games, don't they? You can put together a composite team from many eras, and you can bring some of these superstars from the past into a modern team. But yeah, go back and watch the film of the real thing.
Yeah, to your point about Stéfano and Puskás, it's sort of proof that Florentino Pérez didn't really invent the Galáctico concept. He may have coined the term, or the term was coined in that era, but Santiago Bernabéu sort of did that, 50 years before in his own way. That's sort of the Real Madrid cultural heritage.
Yeah, and bringing a player to Europe from South America now is no big deal. He just hops on a private plane and there's a limo to meet him at Madrid airport and a villa waiting for him fully staffed. That wasn't the case in 1960. It was a big deal to up sticks on a separate continent, get on an ocean-going liner for a few days, and then arrive in a land that you don't know anything about because you haven't seen television pictures, and there's no you can't look on Google Maps to see where it is you're going to go and stay. So that rawness about early sport. I've actually, you can see my office in a state of disrepair at the moment because I haven't been working this summer. So I have been, as Eminem said, cleaning up my closet. And I've actually thrown away an awful lot of memorabilia. I've been brutal, but it has sort of taken me back through, one or two artifacts from early in my career. I did a couple of Instagram stories on the subject earlier in the summer, and people love it. I mean, people love to see tickets and commentary charts from a period before they were born. It's I've often said, and I would say this. There's a kind of belief in modern broadcasting that it needs a 28-year-old to broadcast to 28-year-olds. No,